Veritas Acquitus by Bones Boy 15, Chapter 20, The Toad Sage. 5 years ago, the village of Khan was a beautiful border village in the edge of Vacuo's vast and never-endless desert, the most well-balanced of what were called the hidden villages due to the extreme most occupant subjects subjected themselves to. One village lived in the peak of a mountain, hidden among clouds where the air was thin. Khan was a thriving destination for people and had at one point been among the top pick of the hosts for the Vital Festival. However, with the ire of the terrorist group of Fourth War focused on this village for reasons unknown, Khan had referred and quickly rejoined its hidden sister villages, where they resided in the back of Remnant's mind. That did not mean Khan was desolate, poor, or near bankrupt. No, for its balanced war climate, fine education, good people, Khan was still one of the few oasis getaways that the citizens of Baku would visit. Not to mention, it and its sister had an underground following because of the biannual hidden mid-class tournament. Because people from all over Vacuo and a few from other kingdoms flocked to the host village with lien in their pockets to gamble over the young fighters that called the hidden villages their homes. One such fighter was a 12-year-old blond boy with odd scars on his cheeks. The boy was clad in only his green and orange boxers, currently soaked to the bone. His skin burned pink from an unintentional dip in the hot springs, and his eyes narrowed at the back of a white-haired man that was currently peeping into the woman's fence-off hot spring. "Hey, you dirty old pervert! What the hell was that for?" The outraged cry was done in mild defense of the hunter for the dirty old pervert that had knocked straight into the sky when the hunter tried to stop the peeper from peeping. The white-haired man quickly turned around and glared at the blonde. Red tear-like lines fell from his dark eyes to the bottom of his jaw, and a small single wart was on the side of his nose. A horned steel blade covered his forehead, pushed back at the thick white hair that threatened to fall into the man's face. "Why don't you keep it down and go play somewhere else, kid? You're a bit young to truly understand an artist's mind," he said with an edge to his tone. "An artist, sure, yeah, and I'm a little fairy." The blonde scoffed and crossed his arms over his chest. His eye twitched when he realized the man had turned back to his people. "Might as well be with how short you are," said the man. A perverted giggle escaped him after his nonchalant diss, and the sound of something shuffling soon followed. "Oi, who are you calling short, peeper?" The boy practically shouted the last word. The man went rigid as the girls on the other side of the fence started to cover themselves and scream in fear and anger. He faced the boy with a snarl on his face. "God damn it, you stupid shit! Do you know how close I was to finishing? That's disgusting!" The blonde covered his mouth and looked away, his face quickly becoming green at the thought of the old man doing such an act stupidly. "My next chapter! I was so close to finishing up the next chapter for my book." The man corrected the blonde's assumption with an infuriating look on his face. He even held up the small notebook he was using to write. "Chapter." The green left the blonde's face, and he looked over the notebook. The glowing red replaced what had once been green, and the prepubescent teen jumped away. A finger of accusation locked on the old man. "I was right. You are nothing more than a dirty old pervert." "I am most certainly am not." "Bull, that notebook and that peephole says otherwise. I am not a dirty old pervert." "Oh yeah, then what are you?" The old man gained a proud smile and stood up with his hands on his hips and his chest puffed out. "I am a super pervert." The man held his finger up pointedly. The super pervert, to be precise. Despite whatever that runt Roshi thinks, I am his superior in the arts of perversion. I can take a woman and with modest beauty and with my words alone transform her into her deepest, darkest teenage desires. How is that better? You wouldn't understand your want 10. I'm almost 13, jackass. Oh, better watch your mouth, kid. Don't want your mommy to come wash it out. I'd be afraid if I ever had a mom to worry about." The man's smirk faltered slightly, but the boys didn't show any outward change. The blonde thrust a finger back at the white-haired man. "Hey, don't think I didn't notice that you changed the subject. You punched my temp teacher out of the village. How the hell am I supposed to train for the tournament now?" They let a runt like you join into the tournament?" the man asked. "I'm not short, goddammit. I just haven't reached my growth spurt yet." "Calm down, kid. I've been there." The man waved him off. He rubbed his chin and then shrugged. Well, all I can say is I'm sorry about your troubles. I got a book to finish, so I guess hopefully I won't see you around. The blonde gaped as the man started to walk away. He quickly ran after him, completely forgetting about his clothes folded to the side of the spring. Hey, you gotta help me, or I'll tell the old man what you did. Kathleen, you got me good, kid, and I'll prank you 10 ways to Sunday. The man arched a brow. Is that supposed to be a threat? He asked. You better believe it. Naruto Uzumaki is the best damn prankster in all of Bakugo, and if you do me wrong, I'll find you and embarrass the flying fuck out of you. That got the man to stop. He turned around and stared at the blonde for a brief moment. Definitely their son, the man thought. Master Saratobi didn't tell me that he was such a loud runt. Hard to believe 12 years have gone by. He, he looks a lot like you, Minato. What the hell are you staring at, perv? Naruto demanded with a scowl. You into kids too? But he's definitely your son, Kushina. The man's eyes twitched, and he could imagine the woman grinning proudly at the accusatory tone his thoughts took. Her husband would be laughing in agreement. The damn traitor. No, you just remind me of someone I hadn't seen in a while. What'd you say your name was? The man asked. The boy blinked and grinned proudly as he pounded a fist against his chest. Naruto Uzumaki, the future huntsman of Remnant. Well then, Naruto Uzumaki, allow me to introduce myself. The man started a strange dance as he began his introduction on a small bridge. I am the hermit of Mount Miyaboku, the wise and wonderful sage of toads, the man who makes women flock for pleasure, the gallant Jiraiya. Naruto stared at him, and Jiraiya, still in what he thought was the coolest pose ever for an introduction, closed his eyes, his grin plastered on his face. Yes, be in awe of my awesomeness. Just like Minato, he's speechless. I've still got. You're the crazy guy in the marketplace that people steer the children away from because they keep spouting apocalyptic nonsense. Jiraiya fell flat on his face. A silent wail of anguish and annoyance escaped him, and in the back of his mind repeated the mantra, he's Kushina's son, he's Kushina's son, he's Kushina's son, he's Kushina's son, he's Kushina's son. A finger poked into the side of his face, and Jiraiya glared up at the smirking blonde. But I think Freeman is a nice guy, so maybe there's hope for you, even if you're a dirty old pervert. I hate you, kid. You're not the first to say that, and you certainly won't be the last. As he got to his feet, Jiraiya couldn't fight down the guffaw that the blonde's cheeky grin. Yep, he's definitely Kushina and Minato's son. Present, as he deflected several dust shards from striking her with the scythe made of crescent rose. Ruby scowled at the mysterious burglar that had suddenly attacked her. Okay, well, in hindsight, she should have known that was going to happen. Someone sneaking across rooftop and breaking into the CCT was bound to be up to no good. Still, though, Ruby used her manners as was polite even when she addressed the cat burglar. According to Weiss, there was supposed to be some courtesy shown. Last time I listened to her people skills advice when I'm chasing a criminal, Ruby thought sourly. While she fired at the acrobatic thief, Ruby's thoughts went to her various friends' advice over the meeting people and why she had stepped out of the dance in the first place. She couldn't help that she was socially awkward. Socially was awkward, or than she was, so why did she have to conform? Fight now, think later, Ruby mentally scolded herself. She spun Crescent Rose in her hands and held it at her hip. Her larger caliber bullets fired through the air and shattered the electronic screens or pierced pierced the controls of the CCT's data room. Each shot meant the infiltrator who dodged them and crafted a bow out of seemingly thin air. Oh, come on, stupid heels, Ruby complained as she awkwardly avoided the arrows the mysterious woman fired at her. How the hell anyone fights in heels, Ruby would never know, but she gave any woman that could mad props. There was a hiss as the elevator doors opened, and Ruby turned to see two men accompanying it. One was vaguely familiar. He was the headmaster of Atlas Huntsman School, General James Ironwood, but the other guy was a stranger. Ruby looked back at her foe with a smirk and gaped when she realized that the woman was gone. What? How? Well, color me impressed. The stranger whistled, drawing Ruby's attention back to him. He stood taller than Ironwood by a good 3 inches, though one of those inches were due to his strange sandals, and wore what could only be described as an olive version of a stereotypical ninja's clothing, with a visible net-like shirt and pants underneath held up by a simple black belt. Olive-colored pads covered the hair cover the back olive covered pads covered the back of his hands, and over his pajama like top was a red vest. Long, crazy white hair covered his head and was held out of his face by a horn headband that looked like it was made of steel. Red tear-like lines fell down to his jaw from his dark eyes, and a wart was visible on the side of his nose. This room is utterly threshed. I hardly see how this calls for being impressed. Lord Jeriam. Ironwood bit out the word Lord as if it burned his tongue. The man Jeriah grinned at him. I wasn't talking about the room. Jeriah looked back at Ruby and his grin widened slightly. Ruby held close and rose up to act as a visual deterrent, her discomfort written on her face, and Ironwood groaned into his gloved hand. The action made Jeriah guffaw. I should have just stayed at the dance, Ironwood mumbled with a frown. He'd finally gotten a dance with Glinda, too. Talk about being gift of a prime opportunity. But then you wouldn't have come to get me out of Vale's holding cell, and then I wouldn't have offered to help you investigate the break-in, Jeriah countered smugly. He crossed his arms over his chest. On a side note, you've only got 2 more favors to repay. Don't remind me, Ironwood grumbled as he glared at Jeriah. He leveled a look at Ruby, who was trying to appear as insignificant as possible. You're a student at Beacon, right? The leader of Team Ruby? Yes, sir. I'm Ruby Rose, she said meekly. A small wave was added. Nice to see you again. I hope for your sake that was a joke. Ironwood folded his arms firmly over his chest because then I can just write it off as poor humor instead of a defensive mechanism. Oh, come on, Jimmy. How many times do I have to tell you not to call me that? Ironwood asked his companion with a glare. Jeriah continued as if he hadn't just been interrupted or just insulted the Adlucian general. Let's get the kid back to Ozzy's feel-good party. I highly doubt a Crow's Star student would ruthlessly assault the CCT guard and then thrash the place. Ruby was about to argue when she caught the name the man dropped. You know my Uncle Crow? She asked. The 2 men looked at her and Jeriah smirked. Kid, I got stories about practically everyone's uncle, including Jimmy's here. Lord Jeriah, you were telling me why we shouldn't have her questioned? Ironwood asked. Yeah. Jeriah nonchalantly waved the general off. Like I said, she doesn't look like the type of girl who would break up several professionally trained soldiers without causing some excessive damage. Now, if it was my student, yes, yours is known to the world. Yes, your is known to the world for his mayhem. Ironwood argued. Psst, that's only when Naruto's not trying. I'm sure Ozpin's faculty had already had some issue with finding evidence of some of his more exciting pranks. Jeriah mused thoughtfully. Like when he made Professor Goodwitch hair green for a few days, Ruby nodded. Ironwood snapped his head over to the girl and she shrunk down to hide behind her side. He did what? Probably one of the first things he did, right? Jeriah asked. Ruby, who came a bit out of her shell as the older man spoke to her. He was not as scary as General Ironwood was, but Ruby would still keep him at an arm's length away. Yeah, that was way back at the beginning of the school year, Ruby nodded again. Everyone agreed he did it, and Naruto doesn't argue, but he also doesn't admit it. No evidence and no admittance means plausible deniability. Jiraiya nodded sagely. One of my first lessons, he really took it like fish in water, or an uzumaki to ramen. Like this one time we were traveling through Jiraiya, Ironwood hissed in a glare. If we're not going to question her now, then let's return to Beacon. Jiraiya huffed and turned his head away. Spoiled sport. Do you think they're trying to become one thing? His son asked thoughtfully as he and Blake stared at Naruto, who was dressed back up in his tux, and Yang, while the two blondes heatedly made out of the two side, while the rest of the room was dancing to the Foolish Fool's music choices. As soon as Naruto tore himself away from the group of fellow Vacuo natives that crowded him and his team, Yang snatched Naruto's hand and pulled him into a deep kiss. The claim was made, and the many eyes glared at the blonde couple. Because of her claim, and Naruto because of his lack of resistance to it. On a side note, Sun foresaw a few catfights in the near future, and those signs were always a plus in his book. Since then, 30 minutes had passed, and Sun swore neither had broken away from the kiss. Even as they maneuvered through the crowd to the table the four now sat at, the fondness from Haven was positive that his buddy and his buddy's girlfriend hadn't broken apart. It honestly wouldn't surprise me, Blake mumbled lowly. She had become far too accustomed to Naruto and Yang's eccentric personalities in the short time that she knew them. I mean, this is what, minute 40 mark? Sun asked. He rubbed his chin. How do you practice such a thing alone? With a friend? The last question made Naruto start, and he very reluctantly pulled away from Yang. They panted lightly, Yang having a dopey grin on her face, while Naruto glared at Sun. What are you implying? He asked slowly. The monkey-tailed fauna held his hands up defensively. I'm not implying anything. Sun quickly defended himself. He blinked as a thought struck him and then leaned closer to Naruto. A small grin had made itself known on the previously nervous teen's face. Why, are you afraid of me implying something? No, the whiskered blonde denied quickly, far too quickly. Blake furrowed her brow and narrowed her gaze. You're hiding something, she accused. Sun's screen widened slightly. Oh yes, he is. I'm not hiding anything. Naruto hissed venomously. His eyes narrowed back at Blake. Leave it, Belle. Fine. Blake sat back in seemingly disinterest. In seemingly disinterested, as her arms, previously holding her head aloft, folded over her chest. Sun gave her a pout, and Naruto's unnaturally angry look washed from his face. The former white fag member gained a smile, a small, playful smile. I'll just ask Kurama. I'm sure he'd be open. He'd be open to telling me anything for the right price. Oh ho ho, that's cruel, Blake. Sun chuckled out while Naruto paled. You wouldn't, he faltered when the girl raised a challenging brow, and her smirk grew just slightly. Naruto's tan skin became a chalk white. That's low, Belle. That's really low. I'm a ninja. Fear my ninjitude, Blake returned coolly. Her smirk turned into a small grin when Sun burst into laughter, and Naruto let his head drop into his hands. Yang, who finally came out of her make-out-induced stupor, looked around the table with a confused frown on her face. Whoa, hold up. Did I miss something? Yang asked. Sun continued laughter, and Blake's grin did little to answer her question as she turned to her boyfriend. Naruto, what I missed? Your partner and my pen pal are double teaming me, vigorously pumping me, and roughly pounding me at my inner walls for the glorious secrets and succulent treasures that resides within. Sun fell out of his chair, his arms around his side, and tears racing down his face from his laughter. Blake's grin faltered just slightly as the faint dusting of pink appeared on over her face, and her amber eyes glared vigorously at Naruto. It was as if her eyes had marked him as a target, and to make matters even more interesting, the depressed blue belonging to Yang's boyfriend flashed a silent challenge back at the faunus. Ignoring the contest between her boyfriend and her partner, Yang gave an insolent huff and sent a dirty look at Blake. And you didn't invite me? She asked. Naruto was about to reveal one of his secrets before you snapped out of La La Land. Blake calmly returned. You don't know that, Naruto protested with a frown. Honestly, Belle, jumping to such an assumption after you display such cruelness? I'll go ask Kurama and let you deal with Coco's anger for pulling him away from Velvet, Blake challenged. Naruto stole a glance over at the two faunus, Fox and his self-proclaimed older sister as they talked. The grimace spread over across his face, and he sat up in his seat. You know, most people buy dinner before they try to screw someone, he said lowly. Blake's eyes twitched at the vulgar implication while Yang nodded in agreement. Nothing in life is free, said the buxom bombshell of Team Ruby. She sent a sly look at her boyfriend. But your little concert did knock your price down from a 6-star restaurant to a 5-star one. I guess I should either start saving or rearrange folks' will, Naruto mused thoughtfully. He frowned. Really hope they let me dip in to spoil significant others. I don't want to have to cut back on ramen. Glad to know where I rank on your priority list, Whisker Boy, Yang said with a smirk. Would you sell a Bumblebee to take me out to dinner at a fancy restaurant? Naruto countered, a brow raised in question. Yang pursed her lips in thought. Fair point, BB is, baby. While listening to you two barter with each other with each other for sex is absolutely enthralling. I believe I still have a question needing to be answered, Blake reminded the couple with her dry sarcasm. Naruto scowled at her while Yang gave her an apologetic grin and held her hands up in a what can you do manner.
Sorry, Blake. We can't help ourselves sometimes. I mean, we're a Yang couple after all. A bad bedroom storm just waiting to be unleashed. Naruto nodded sagely at his own words, Yang redirecting her grin at him. Going for a translation pun, huh? Not bad, Maelstrom. Damn right I am, honey. Focus. Blake interrupted the two before they could start another hour-long makeout session. The cat-like fauna stared at Naruto, annoyed with his casual ability to redirect conversation away from his secret with the use of lewd humor. She didn't know if Yang was aware of it or not, but her partner was definitely helping just to rile Blake up. That, and Sun was still dying from laughter on the floor beside her. All right, fine, Naruto said with a groan. He sagged his shoulder and looked away very softly. The words left his lips and a light blush appeared on his face. Blake's eyes shot wide open, and her faintly pink cheeks blossomed into a full-on infernal red. Yang, who did not have the same acute hearing as Blake did, arched a delicate brow at the sight and looked at her boyfriend. What did you tell her? She cried. He looked at her for a moment, opened his mouth, hesitated, and then closed it. You're not the one who asked, Naruto said with finality. The words made Yang's jaw drop. Excuse me? Loopholes are like assholes. They were made to be used in a certain way. It just depends on how you use them and if you use them well. Naruto kept his gaze avert from Yang, his blush slowly fading away as he did. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Yang asked with a glare. A lesson my godfather taught me, the whiskered blonde answered, he still not looking away from the banister he suddenly acquired an interest in, pointed at Blake, whose eyes had glazed over and her mouth curved upwards into a small and just a tad slightly perverted smile. She was the one who asked about a secret, and so did Sun, but he's preoccupied. There was a pained wheeze followed by a chuckle from the floor. You, Mayango, did not ask. You were merely in a situation which could have benefited you greatly had I not stalled to think about how I would answer Blake's question. Naruto finally looked away from the banister and met her narrowed light-like eyes and amused smile on his face. Sorry, but I'm not an easy safe to crack. Where's the fun in that if you learned my deepest darkest secret so soon? There's something deeper than killing someone, Yang asked slowly. She gave him mild credit for reusing the puny nickname as an adjective, something she felt was far more flattering than when he simply addressed her as the pun. Her lips pressed together in a pout as she chuckled lightly. That's only scratching the surface. There's the whole flood that I'm keeping inside just for you. Naruto smirked slightly and brushed her lips with his thumb. He rose up from his seat and then adjusted his coat. Speaking of liquids, I'm pretty sure that son needs something to help his throat recover, and I'm feeling a bit parched from my little concert. Back in a second, and you might want to get Blake a napkin in case her nose bleeds. The mischievous blonde strode away from after he helped the coughing son to his feet, leaving a pouting Yang along with her head in the cloud's partner. The buxom blonde turned her attention to Blake, who was still lost in a thousand-yard stare. A wave in front of the secret fonz's face didn't snap her out of it, and neither did some fingers snapping above her head in front of the bow. Yang's eyes twitched. Damn it. Now I really want to know what he said, she thought sourly. If it was something so good it got the stoic Blake to react so strongly, it was definitely something Yang could hold over Naruto's head forever. Finally, Yang settled on giving Blake a firm pinch on the arm. The Vanis jumped and hissed slowly before she clapped a hand over her mouth. Her eyes widened in horror. Yang, however, grinned wildly. I love it when you show me your wild side. Tell anyone and you die. Well, now this is a party. Jiraiya clapped his hands together and rubbed them eagerly as his eyes washed over the crowd, primarily over all the teenage girls with revealing dresses. His gaze lingered on a red-headed beauty with a eye-drawing red dress that was far too conservative for his taste, but certainly gave him quite the inspiration if he was a good few decades younger. Jiraiya prayed that if his wayward student slash godson had gotten a girlfriend, it would be her. The story of Nimato and Koshina, a radiant, raunchy red-headed seductress who used chains in battle and was Nimato's greatest challenge slash equal in the Ninjas of Love lore, was the most beloved edition, and it was the tale that really brought in the female readers. The fandom was absolutely devastated when both Nimeto and Ko Shina passed in the most recent release of the series, especially since Nimeto and Ko Shina passed away on the night the heir to the heir of the Fa Pin Fist protagonist had been born. Gerard was thinking of calling the boy Root Now, with pronunciation of Root Now included. Obvious sex jokes were hilarious, and considering the activities that Gerard already had in mind for the next hero, it was an apt name. But there was a flaw with his story, a singular flaw that needed to be fixed sooner, or the whole story wouldn't be finished by the time his publisher wanted it. Jiraiya lacked a primary love interest for the next hero. He had thought of making her honest, to keep with the wild theme and open the suggestion of equality through subtle dialogue, seed planting via dirty novels for the win, but it didn't have any personality or a set appearance in mind, which is where the super pervert returned to the hope the narrator had chosen the scarlet haired version of Beauty. She would make a marvelous female lead. The battle hardened hourglass figure she shared with Ko Shina matched the parallel between Root Now and Nimato. A gleeful, perverted giggle escaped the old man, and he pulled out his handy-dandy notebook. Ironwood was giving him a look blatant disapproval, and the young cutie, who may or may not make a cameo in Rudnow's love life, Jiraiya hadn't decided yet, gave him the same confused look that his godson gave him when they first started their training. Such a simple and pure kid. Yeah, she'd be a great addition. He absently jotted a note down before he looked back up at the redhead to finish getting her measurement estimates. To Jiraiya's horror, a blond boy in a short fitted dress and sneakers obscured his vision of the beauty. His eyes bled as he unintentionally ogled the teen's muscles back. The self-proclaimed super pervert recoiled as he squeezed his eyes shut. He used his fingers to form a cross in front of him and took a solid step back. "Begone, devilish vision! Leave me my eyes!" His cries earned him a few odd looks, but they were all ignored. A couple of eyes widened, and he vaguely recognized them, belonging to students of Vacuo Hunter Academy, where he was far more known than when compared to the other four Kingdoms Academy, where he was far more well known than compared to the other four Kingdoms academies. The life of a living legend never fails to bring joy to his heart when he hears whispers about who he was. A bit distorted by the music, three voices Jorah recognized simultaneously shouted at the sound of his voice. "Shut up, you dirty old toad! There they are," Jorah said with a smirk. He turned to Ironwood and gave a mock salute. "My children call for me. This is where we part, Jimmy." "Goodbye, sir," Ironwood tightly bit out. Jiraiya laughed and turned back to the simple-minded niece of the young crow. "It was nice to meet one of the brat's friends, but I got to go give him a piece of my mind. See you around, Red." Jiraiya gave a quick wave before he disappeared into the crowd. How did he know this? He knew that due to Red's question directed at the young general. How did he disappear when he was dressed like that? To be a master of spies always made the ladies stare at his departure in awe and rage. There was also usually a thin underlying layer of rage. Any reason you just randomly shouted like that?" Coco asked the groaning fox-like fondness her friend was so enamored with. They were having a nice gossiping session about the visitors from Haven when Kerma's tail went straight, and he froze in the middle of his sentence before he shouted the insult in the air. A mental disorder was something Coco needed to be informed of before she let her friend start dating this guy. "And why did Naruto and Sasuke shout too?" Velvet asked. She was a tad concerned at the way Kurama pinched his nose and grumbled after he suddenly shouted. "They did?" Coco asked, with Fox arching a brow in mild surprise. Velvet nodded, and the three older students looked at Kurama. "Naruto's godfather is here," Kurama answered simply. He looked up at them with a frown on his face, which either means he's come for a visit or he's come to test us. "And those are bad because," Coco fished. Ultimately, Kurama sighed and looked up at the ceiling. "Every female on this campus will want to kill us after he leaves. That's it. They'll probably be able to because we'll either be too mentally exhausted from his antics or too physically exhausted from him knocking our asses around like we're training dummies." He's not that bad, is he?" Violet asked. Imagine, if you will, a lonely old pervert who stays at home watching porno 24/7. Then give that man Naruto's eccentric and boisterous personality. Got it in mind? The three nodded, all pale. Velvet was mostly white, as the thought. That's Naruto's godfather in a nutshell. Kurama sighed. And what, pray tell, was that about? Hako asked his teammate with a look of bewilderment. Wise and Neptune both had disturbed looks on their faces from Sasuke's sudden and rude outburst in the middle of the Haven student's story. A rude interruption from Naruto and Kurama was expected. Both the boys the more abrasive of their team, but from Sasuke, it was shocking. Why is he here? Sasuke mumbled to himself as he rubbed his red face. He looked at Neptune apologetically. I'm so sorry. That's an automatic reaction. To what? Neptune asked. This was way better than the story about the first time Sage got pranked by Sun. Possibly both one of the greatest novelists I've ever met and the primary example of why men need to have monogamous marriages by age 30, Sasuke answered. Made wise for her brow, and Neptune scratched his head, but Haku's eyes widened. Wait, he's here? Haku asked. Why would he come here? Did Naruto invite him? No way. Naruto doesn't invite him to anything, Sasuke refuted. He threw his hands up. The man just knows where, when, and how to appear to cause me misery. This person sounds horrible, Wise said with a scowl on her face. She folded her arms in front of her. Figures that Uzumaki knows him. Oi, it's worse than that, Sasuke said, neither agreeing nor disagreeing with the white-haired girl. The raven-haired teen rubbed his face. Their family. That is worse. Wise, Haku admonished the Harris. Got to agree with the Snow Angel on this one, Neptune said with a nod. Come on, he can't be that bad. After all, Naruto sings praises of his godfather's training, Haku protested. His godfather trains him, Wise asked curiously. That's what I've been told, and he's only sing praises after the training is done, when he's seen the results, Sasuke pointed out. He shuddered. That man is a slave driver, and I'm grateful he refuses to teach anyone else, but his student won't shut up about it. I don't know about Kurama, but I feel like I go through the damn torture after Naruto describes it. Okay, I'm with Haku on this one. It can't be that bad, Neptune argued logically. People over-exaggerate all the time. Sasuke stared directly at him. Naruto's own godfather threw him off a 50-foot cliff into a crevice that did visibly and was about 90 feet wide. You're kidding. Neptune let out a weak laugh. Nice one. There was jagged rocks on either side, each shaped like a massive, in the idiot's own words, swirly cone. They were easily 30 feet long, possibly a half that much in width. Oh my god, he's not kidding. Wise's eyes grew wide in horror, and she thought about the day she got her scar. Even her father, as much of a stickler as he was for perfection, wasn't that harsh when he oversaw her lessons. Naruto semblance, and remember that this is the stupid powered idiot we're talking about here could not break through the rocks. Well, he did something. It wasn't like he died, Haku pointed out. He became a bit unnerved when Haku's so firm stare turned his way. Naruto only survived the fall because he was able to multiply his durability to 50 times that of a normal human. So, he was only 12 at the time. His body couldn't withstand the strain of that much aura. Some of his skin burned off, and he was hospitalized for a month and a half. How do you know that? Haku asked. Sasuke gingerly touched his right arm and grimaced. Naruto was brought in a week after we had our big fight. I was still getting treatment for my arm. This man raised Naruto? Neptune asked as he pelted rapidly. Oh, God, no. Sasuke grabbed at his chest, and his eyes were wider than before. Don't even... If I had to think about what Naruto would be like if he was raised by his godfather, I think I might kill myself. I'm not even kidding. I would not want to live in a world where the idiot was raised by the toad. Aha, that's your secret. You know a dirty old toad, Yang accused. She knew it was wrong. She was just guessing now, like she had been for the past 10 minutes. Yang couldn't get anything out of Blake, as her fondest teammate would almost drift off in thought with glazed over eyes whenever she thought about Naruto's secret, and evoked both envy and anger directed at her teammate, as well as the mage's curiosity. Just how vivid was the imagination her catty friend seemed to have. I wish, Naruto mumbled with a mild look of annoyance on his face. His eyes were narrowed and scanning the sea of hormones. that were the dance goers. What he was searching for, Yang hadn't a clue. Blake disagreed with Naruto's wish in her slight green face was anything to go by. Again, Yang wondered just what exactly was going through the girl's mind. The toad is here, with Kurenai here? The son asked as he shrunk a bit in his seat. Yang was not surprised to see the monkey boy so afraid of her team's appointed mother hen. Kurenai was downright scary when she was mad, and her naturally red eyes helped a lot to instill fear when she was calling someone. Yang had been on the brunt of such scolding before, and after the lunchroom incident due to a few too many PDAs she and Naruto had, so she could understand Sun's fear of the wound. Still, it begged the question. The toad? Sun Yang asked. The toad sage, Sun said. Blake's eyes sparkled as she joined Naruto's search. My godfather, Naruto replied a beat afterwards. Ah, okay. Yang nodded and began to think about what her boyfriend's secret could possibly hold. That thought a moment. Yang snapped her head over to Naruto. The toad sage is your what? Blake and Yang asked together. The buxom blonde turned her attention back to the fauness, whose amber eyes were bright and brimming with jealousy as they stared at Naruto in shock. Godfather, you know, the guy that's supposed to be your go-to in case something happens to your parents? Naruto continued to search the crowd for the toad sage, his lips pursed, and he did a quick check behind him before he returned his gaze to the sea of hormones. Your godfather is the author of Ninjas of Love? Blake asked. You know, he says that and yet always tries to mooch off of me. Naruto commented thoughtfully, so I'm guessing he has nothing to do with the construction of the novels and was just the lucky bastard whose title was chosen to conceal the true genius behind the series. A fist buried itself into the top of Naruto's skull, and an arm wrapped around his throat. Naruto had slipped a hand between his throat and his assailant's arm, so he wasn't being choked, but the attacker grounded his knuckle around into the blonde skull. Yang gave the man a quick once-over since she realized her view was in a real danger. Olive-colored ninja pajamas, fishnet clothes beneath, a red vest above, a simple black belt, wooden sandals, and a horn headband covered the older man's body. White hair spilled from his head, and a massive, barely contained mane of spikes, and the age was visible in his face along with a wart on the side of his nose. Tinbuck says that's the origin of his title. Yang thought as she watched her boyfriend get assaulted by some strange old man. You little ungrateful bastard! The blasphemy that spills from your puny mouth is not more than a heathen slander, lies and poison. How the hell is a runt like you supposed to take up the business after I die? You goddamn dumbass shrimp! Who are you calling a little puny runt shrimp, you old perf? Naruto heatedly yelled back at his assailant, the fist grinding around his head thumped him once before it began to grind again. I'm calling you a little brat, you little brat. I'm not little. That is true in more than one way, Yang said with a smirk. The two looked at her, stopped in their antics. Hello, beautiful. Oh, the old perv, as Naruto called him, doubled over and cradled his loins after Naruto elbowed him hard in the groin. She's off limits, pervy sage, Naruto growled at the whimpering older man. Yeah, I kind of figured that out when you cheap-shotted me in the nards, you little shit. The man hissed as tears trailed off his cheeks. He ducked back down and shuddered while Naruto rolled his eyes. Please, like anything down there still works after all the blows it's taken over the years. Yang winced at the burn her boyfriend dished out at his godfather, who shot at his feet in outrage. I'll have you know, Brad, that this stud and all of its parts are still in working order, he snarled with his hands on his hips. He smacked Naruto upside the head when the whiskered blonde rolled his eyes. Damn pervert, damn punk. Some pointed between the two. Are we sure there are no relation here? He asked. You two are a lot alike. I mean, in more ways than one. As if I'm anything like this old purr from Lil Punk. Naruto and his godfather glared at Sun for his suggestion before they glared at each other for the insult. Nope, not alike at all, Yang thought with a grin on her face. Naruto was right when he was all wound up like this. The old perv was quickly becoming one of Yang's favorite people in the world, and and that list wasn't short, but it certainly was difficult as hell to get on. Making her laugh was a good way to get there, and the way her boyfriend and his godfather were butting heads definitely made that happen. How many times do I have to tell you, Brad? I'm not a mere privet. When you get it through your skulls that I'm not little, you old toad. Did Naruto always have an accent? Blake asked her laughing teammate softly as a noticeable change became apparent in Naruto's voice. Becky was a bit more diverse when it comes to language, Sun said with a shrug as his voice gained a small change, becoming a bit higher in pitch. He cleared his throat and spoke normally again. Wandering natives developed their own language and relearned the remnant basic we all speak. My gramps was a wanderer when he was younger and learned their language. Bet any amount of money the toad was too. God, and you got them all calling me Toad. What kind of ungrateful brat does that? What kind of pervy old guy takes a 12-year-old into the red light district? You loved it and you know it. You're just trying to make me look bad in front of your pretty girlfriend. First of all, Yang's not pretty, she's stunning. Naruto argued with huff. Alright, I'll give you that. Definitely a 10 when she's all dolled up. The older man nodded. Have to wait to see her all nat. Oof! Naruto lowered his arm and shook out his wrist while the man braced himself against the table and rubbed his gut. Secondly, like I said before, Yang is off limits. Got it? The whiskered blonde growled again. Crystal. The man wheezed. He coughed and took Sun's punch, getting an affronted cry from the fondness before he drowned it in one go. Ah, so sweet of you to protect me, Naruto, but I told you be Yang, trust me. Unless I tell him otherwise, he'd be hounding after you from the trees outside your room. Naruto cut his girlfriend off dryly. Naruto's godfather nodded and set Sun's cup down. It's true, I do it. He admitted without shame. He moved on the list for his blunt honesty about who he is and what he is. That's admirable in Yang's book. The white-haired man pulled a chair out and plumped a squat next to his godson before he gave Yang a kinder, more natural smile, like that of a young grandfather. The name's Jiraiya, he said. Yang Xiaolong. Yang returned. Ooh, I like that. Rolls right off the tongue. His notebook popped out and was scribbled in for a second before Naruto made a reach for it. Jiraiya slapped his godson's hand away and tucked the notebook back in his pocket. Well, damn, now Yang wanted to know what he wrote on top of what Naruto's secret was. Well, it's nice to meet the brat's first girlfriend. Jiraiya clapped a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Way to go, kid, I'm proud of you. First one's the knockout. I've had a girlfriend before. Yang and Naruto cut Jiraiya off, the former a bit sour while the latter seemed tired of repeating himself. Wait, for real? Jiraiya asked before he looked at Naruto. What lies have you told this girl? Did you tell her that your heart was broken, your will to live ended until your eyes fell upon hers, using your gift to wrongfully snare such a beauty? Tears streaming down his eyes, Jiraiya began to wipe his arm across his face as he sniffed and smiled with warbled lips. I've taught you so well, he bawled. Naruto dropped his face into his arms and let out a groan. Yang rubbed his back while she and Sun laughed, and Blake smirked at his misery. Hates me, I'm sure of it. No, he doesn't, Yang said with a smile. This is balance, Whisker Boy. After all, you're dating me, remember? True, Naruto mused as he started to calm down. Speaking of balance, mind telling me this curious old man what your boy is? You slimy old... What did I just say? Never mind. End of chapter 20.